Hello everybody and welcome to Grablives. Just to start off with our disclaimer, everything we say and do does not reflect the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. And just to start with our sponsor and our newest team member that is in alignment with Grablives, it's going to be Frontline Behavioral Wellness. And Frontline offers a ton of modalities to treat and focus on treating firefighters, first responders, veterans. Their mission is to have a sound mind, body, and soul. And they are accessing so many different modalities on how to do that: EMDR therapy, group therapy, and finding a diagnosis for you. They do take insurance. If you're interested in frontline behavioral wellness and their programs, you want to go to acerahealth.com. That way you can access anything and everything that they offer. I highly recommend this agency because they are designed to treat firefighters, first responders, veterans. So if you are interested, if you know someone who needs help, some assistance that's in dire need, they have a wonderful program to assist that. And if you just need someone to just kind of nudge their way into the program of wellness, they can also do that too. So it's an awesome agency, and I'm happy that Grablives has teamed up with them. And just reach out to acerahealth.com, ACERA. Now, for today's episode, I was super excited with this guest, and her name is Lisa Mercier. And she's a part of Dr. Heather Williams' team who focuses on a lot of first responders, firefighters and police officers around the Orange County area and the surrounding areas of LA County. And it's very innovative to come across someone like Lisa because she's very talented and her story is super fascinating. This conversation went longer than expected. However, it was a very interesting perspective from how she treats firefighters and police officers. And to know further, you're going to have to listen in on the episode. So I was super excited, and she's such a wonderful light being. So I hope you enjoy this podcast episode as much as I did. It was a pleasure meeting her and a pleasure having her on the podcast. So thank you. Welcome to Grablives. Today I have a special guest with me, and before I introduce her and we start talking, every guest on Grablives has been very, very special to this project, and one of them being because most of the guests are very organic in the way they're presented, and it's just an honor to be here on this platform and have people who are excited to come on the podcast and share this goal to heal and transform this epidemic of behavioral health and mental health issues amongst first responders and veterans. So that being said, Heather Mercier.
Lisa
Mercier. I don't know why I said that.
Because we were just talking about Heather.
So I met Lisa through Heather, Dr. Heather Williams.
Yes.
And I had just been, going to, Long Beach Fire Department's union meetings, and someone said, "Hey, call Heather Williams." I'm like, okay, I'll give her a call. And so we started talking and we hit it off. And her mission is very innovative and direct on wanting to help first responders and firefighters. So that being said, when I talked to Heather, she said, "You need to meet Lisa." And I was like, okay. So we're having Heather in a couple weeks on the podcast to talk about her message and her impact on what she's doing. But Lisa's here today, and Lisa is she's a master Reiki practitioner, and we're going to go into what that is for those who don't understand what that is. And then also she's a medium that works in with first responders and help them to understand the process of transition of death and what that means on a spiritual realm. And so that being said as well, I always think that if anyone's going to listen to Grablives, you have to realize leave your ego and your belief systems at the door, because over a period of time, the modalities that have been doing to treat behavioral health, it has not worked. So at this point, we're being innovative as possible in order to find some type of balance and center and some type of pathway to healing. So if this doesn't work for you, it might work for someone else. But just be really open and listen to, what Lisa has to say. She's really, she's a bright light, and I'm really excited to have her on today. And yeah, that's pretty much my intro. So thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So go ahead and, if you don't mind, kind of expressing, how you came across this path that you're in, and how you are doing what you're doing.
So I am a medium. That means I can communicate with loved ones on the other side. And this is an ability I was born with. My earliest memory of seeing a spirit was about the age of 4. And in addition to that mediumship gift, I was born highly intuitive. So I can feel living people's energy, and I know things about people pretty quickly within meeting somebody. And so we could talk all day about all my childhood stories of being visited by spirit, and having those intuitive kind of nudges throughout my childhood. But I also grew up Christian. So this was not okay, sort of under that umbrella of Christianity. And I'm not knocking religion. It's very important for a lot of people. But it was a challenge to have these gifts, and being a little girl told by pastors on more than one occasion that, you need to pray more, or you need to keep coming to Sunday school, or stop talking about this. You're being fooled, you're being deceived or tricked. And as a little kid, I always knew that they were wrong. I always knew that the adults were wrong, because I knew my heart, I knew my own self, I knew that I was a good person, and I knew that I believed in God. I didn't want to have these gifts. I mean, I wanted to be normal, quote unquote normal. So it kind of that's part of my whole journey of accepting myself. And these, I call them woo-woo, and that's my term of endearment to myself and to these abilities. But this is such a, sort of taboo subject to talk about and be open about. For years, I didn't talk about it with people. My family knew and my friends knew, but I didn't really go around advertising this, because I was just trying to fit in, which is what everybody strives for, especially those younger sort of teenage years, and then into my 20s. This was not something that I broadcasted to people, so nobody knew. I just was really good at my job because I was getting intuitive sort of nudges and heads up for how to handle situations. And it wasn't until my early 20s, where early to mid, I was working in the kind of first responder world. I was a victim advocate in Orange County, and I was a member of a crisis response team. So I was dispatched to a lot of death, a lot of horrific crime scenes and accidents, and a lot of trauma, that I started to really feel spirit. And when I say spirit, I just mean any energies on the other side, not in our physical reality. I was just being visited constantly by all of these souls. And I just kind of came to this moment one day where I just thought, you know what? I have these abilities. I am a good person. I believe in God, and I have these gifts. I need to learn something. I need to learn about them. I need to practice it. I need to find a place that I can gain some education and insight, because I want to do this, and I want to be safe and smart about it. And so I found an amazing center. My mentor has had to since close in the pandemic. She had to close. So we kind of lost that as a resource, but I attended classes for years there, and it was like, that was my church. It was like being validated every time I went, sitting in a room full of people that were just like me, looking for answers, looking for validation. And through that practice, I felt led to do this work professionally, that this wasn't just an ability for me to have and to know about, and for, to have a fun party trick and, bring through your deceased grandmother at your, Halloween party. I wanted to do this in a legitimate way. And so I started reading people professionally. I've been doing it now for about a decade, and full time for the last 3.5 years. So, and throughout my practice, I work with first responders. I've got lots of clients that have come to me through Dr. Heather Williams. For years, she and I have been doing what we call our joint sessions. She will have a client that she's working with in therapy, and they will start talking about, I know this sounds crazy, but I can hear my dad whistling, and my dad died 5 years ago, and I swear it's his whistle, and I think I'm losing my mind. And she'll go, you're not crazy. I've got somebody for you. Do you mind if we bring in my friend Lisa? And so for years, we've been doing these kind of joint sessions with her present, the client, and me, and I do a reading. And more often than not, the information that is brought up in that session mirrors what they're working on with Heather in therapy. So it's all connected. It is all connected. So it's been she and I joke that we're going to write a book someday about it, because we've had some pretty amazing experiences. And so, and then of course, just as the universe works, I have a lot of first responders that find me on their own that, halfway through the session, I'm like, what do you do for a living? Are you a first responder? Believe it or not, I have a sign and a symbol for when I feel like I'm sitting with a first responder who's living, or when I'm connecting with someone who passed away who was either in the military or a first responder. I have a very specific tell in my body. It's this feeling that I have to stand up straight, and it's a lot of yes, sir, and no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And that's how I know I'm dealing with a first responder. And so I can feel that in people. And I've just it's been incredible that I've got the best clients, and they find me. And the thing that I like that you said in the beginning of you got to leave your beliefs at the door. I am not the type of medium that forces people to believe in what I do. If you believe in this, great. This is a modality for you. If you don't, then it's not going to be effective or successful. You might have your mind blown, but you'll be stuck in that, mind blown space, and you might miss some of the healing aspect of what this is all about. I'm not in the business of making anybody believe in what I do. My clients find me. People find me. It's not that's kind of, that energy kind of takes me in a different direction. It's like, I want to be heard. I need to be heard. I need to be seen. And that's not what I'm about. So if people are interested in this, or they have had a handful of what I call spirit experiences on their own, then come see me, and we can validate it for you. I can let you know what it means, and we can figure out who's giving you those signs, who's coming through, and we can make sense of it all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, what's crazy is that, I had seen this documentary called The Superhuman. I don't know if you've ever seen that. No. And it's this idea of this thing called parapsychology.
Yes.
And parapsychology is essentially this form of doing things through phenomena, which things that cannot be understood. And phenomena goes far into the things we cannot explain by science, right? We always want to validate something by raw, objective evidence, right? And so with parapsychology, it's nothing like that. It's interesting. And so this documentary goes into basically the CIA had used psychics and mediums to do this thing called remote viewing.
I love remote viewing.
So that being said, the United States had this program. I think it was called Project Spyglass. So the CIA would have a person in a room and be able to spy on someone from another country, like Russia, during the Cold War. And they found out about this because Russia was doing this already. So you can look into this documentary called The Superhuman, and it's super fascinating. Wow. And they have these children that are in this course, to where they're blindfolded and they could read a book, or they could throw balls at each other and play on a playground with blindfolds on.
Wow.
It is crazy. This documentary blew my mind. So when I was kind of I'm always open to everything and anything. You know, I don't like to keep constructs to my beliefs on anything. I believe anything is possible. And I think a lot of people are just very stuck on their limiting belief systems,
Right.
and it keeps them constricted. They're unable to expand. So aside from that, that was my kind of like introduction to it. I was like, wow, there's something to this. And I truly believe that, you know, there are empathic people, especially in our line of work, and they don't understand what's going on. And so they're perceiving something that they have no clue of how to navigate it or how to respond or even how to feel like good in their body.
Right.
And, you know, a clear example is that during the lockdown, we had a tremendous amount of death and just fear, just going through the stations, going through just every single call we were going on. So everyone that was in the field, they would come home and they would feel just dense. I know for myself, I felt that way. And I know when I went to the station, one of the captains sat us down and he was just like, hey, there is something like really, really just something's not right in the station. Like there's just been so much death the last week. You guys just chill out today. And I really felt that was a strong sense of leadership in him to say that, because it's palpable when there's something massive like that is being presented to us in our consciousness. And it's just really amazing to see that, you know, now we're expanding because of something like that. And we can see that energetically there is something we can feel. It is tangible, it is palpable. And we can't necessarily put a word to it. We can't necessarily put evidence to it. But now there is expansion on that where, you know, just through like electromagnetic, rate, or I guess frequencies, you can measure these things now, like someone's auric field or, you know, their energetic systems.
Yes.
Some of this stuff is measurable now.
Yeah. And, you know, in the spiritual community, we call it an aura. But in the scientific and clinical community, it's known as your biofield. So everybody, we are all, everything is energy. Our bodies are energetic. So we all we emit signals at different frequencies. And so you're feeling my signals because we're in close proximity. But I'm also feeling yours. But we can feel each other even across, you know, time and space. I mean, we've got, there's more studies out there, but you know, like it allows me to do, and we can talk about Reiki in a little bit, but it allows me to do Reiki, distance Reiki. So people don't even have to be near me for me to connect with them. That's what my master level training, you know, kind of has taught me, is how to focus my energy on the person that I am healing or that I desire to connect with. And it happens through conscious thought, and then my expansion of my own biofield to kind of merge with the person that I'm working with. But that's this, anytime you guys, you in the first responder world, firefighters, if you think about your job, you're in not only each other's auras, you know, at the station, but you're in the auras, the auric field, the biofield of everybody that you come in contact with. So not only that, but you're under a lot of stress, physical stress, emotional stress from all the calls that you go out on. So your body's overloaded from its own stuff, plus you're picking up on the sort of the deposited energy from every person that you're encountering. So it's extra important for first responders to manage their own energy, to kind of clear out the energy. Just as we would exercise and work on our physical health, we have to do the same for our emotional health, but then our energetic health as well. So I can't imagine. And you know what I find too with first responders? You are some of the most intuitive people out there. And every one of my first responder clients will go, oh no, it's just my training. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you are called to this field for a reason, because naturally you are dialed in, and you may not have the language for it or know kind of the ins and outs of what it is, but you are highly, highly intuitive individuals, and it makes you good in this line of work. So it's always fun to validate that for people, but that's why it's, you know, you go through your shift, and it's not just that you're physically tired from an intense day, it's that you're energetically tired as well. So there's a lot going, you know, you guys have to hold a lot in that line of work. So good for that captain to tell you to chill. That was a good call.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because, you know, that intuition is you being try bullshitting a firefighter or a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to do. And it's because we're around people so much, and we have this intuitive sense with just everything from all different kinds of human beings. And I always say that we're workers in the underworld, because that we're going to every single crevice, every single alley, from the beginning of 6 o'clock to the end of 6 o'clock the next day.
Yeah.
And so we're accessing all different parts of the city in which we're working in, and all different levels. And in essence, like that intuitive sense, the problem with it right now is this hypervigilance. So your system is just getting hardwired now, where your intuitive sense is now being misconstructed with this, just you're overwhelming yourself with too many thoughts. That's why now all this practice with meditation is just to sit with yourself for a second and give yourself a moment to clear that, because now you're able to kind of access away from that hypervigilance. But over a period of time, that hypervigilance can really burn someone out.
Yes.
And that's the problem we're seeing with that intuition, is that it's really being fogged up with the burnout to where you don't even feel anymore, which is the main concern for this section of behavioral health, is you're unable to feel because you've created this barrier with yourself to unconsciously protect yourself when you're going on all these calls.
Right.
And especially if you're working at a really busy station, you're going call after call after call after call. You can't even get a chance to eat. And then the bell rings, you're going to a massive fire, and you're just physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, and you're just burnt out. So I really feel like this epidemic has a lot to do with this. And over, I guess, a period of my career, I've noticed that I'm way more sensitive now, because I've taken down those walls for myself in order to really tap into my intuition. And when I know I'm feeling burnt out, I made a relationship with myself to know, okay, I need a break. Okay, I need to come home and do this. I need to stick to this practice. And so, the biggest message is to send that out to anyone who's in this field, is to make a relationship with yourself. No one's going to really access that for you. And you have the highest key to your own success of mental health and behavioral health because of that reason. So, going into Reiki, I'd love for you to kind of express, your knowledge about that and what that does as well.
Sure. So Reiki is a form of energy healing. It comes from Japan. It's an ancient Japanese modality of energy healing. And the way I like to describe Reiki is that it's very similar to acupuncture. The way that needles are placed in specific spots on the body to break up stagnant or stale energy that accumulates in our system, Reiki healing will do the same thing for the body. So essentially what it does is it clears out where I'm in your aura or your biofield, and it clears out that stuck energy. And energy through emotions that you're storing, that you're just shoving down, that you're not ready to deal with or that you haven't dealt with yet, or just your day-to-day stress, it accumulates in our system, in our body. And so Reiki energy kind of has the ability to kind of pull out that stuck energy, and it kickstarts your body's ability to then tap back into its own life force energy, or your chi, your ki, your prana, however you want to call it. Reiki has a way to kind of flip that switch back on within your body, and it reminds your body, oh yeah, I can heal. I know this, I got this, I know what to do. So it's a wonderful healing modality for physical aches and pains, for emotional trauma, emotional pain, and for spiritual confusion or disconnection. So it really treats the whole being, mind, body, and spirit. And it's really amazing. I've been doing it for so long now. It's great to see a lot of hospitals offer Reiki now. A lot of pain management centers are offering Reiki. So it's getting finally sort of the recognition that I think it deserves. But it's a wonderful modality. I've had a lot of people say that they sleep well for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks after they receive a Reiki healing. They're less kind of foggy mentally. It does help with inflammation and physical pain in the body. And the way that I practice Reiki, you're laying on a massage table on your back. And the way I do it is no touch. So you won't actually feel my hands on your body. I'm kind of hovering over your body, about 1 inch or 2 above the body. So I am in your aura, your biofield. And you don't even need to tell me what's going on in your body, more likely than not, I can feel it. I can tell. Plus, I'm very intuitive, so I go kind of right to where I feel that stuck energy. And my practice is to have a checkout at the end. And so I say, this is what I was experiencing, and you can tell me what you were feeling. So I know it's what it sounds like. It's a little strange, but it's very soothing. It's very relaxing. I was up at Chino Police Department the middle of last year. They had me up to do Reiki on some of their personnel as part of their annual wellness check-in, which Dr. Williams leads up through Premier, to check in on all personnel annually to kind of see where they're at and catch any people that might need some resources or assistance. And they requested Reiki as part of that annual wellness check-in. So it's wonderful because we're expanding and we're kind of normalizing this for everybody. And we're exposing this. We're teaching people, that might not otherwise have gone to a Reiki master for healing. You're getting a little taste of it. So I love it. It's one of my most favorite things that I offer because I really get to know a person. And then I can sit with them for a few minutes after and kind of give some suggestions, or this is what I was feeling, and does this resonate with you? And it's a really relaxing healing modality. I highly recommend it.
It's not far-fetched, I promise you.
Okay.
Anyone who's listening. And I can break it down for you.
Go for
so like in Japan, I studied Zen masters, different books, and ancient samurai texts, and a lot of my teachings come from Japan. And just studying them. I've been to Japan. It's a beautiful place. If you ever get a chance, go to Japan. It's seriously awesome. But the word Reiki, the beginning of the word Rei, it's weird because we write words in the English language is different, and they use symbols to write their language. So these symbols are ancient, and there's thousands of years of which they translate certain things through these symbols. So the word Rei is in reference to, it's hard to translate English language from those symbols. So there's like two different ways of which you can, I guess, express the word Rei of the beginning of Reiki, which is, it would be the all-encompassing universe, or all is one. It's like this oneness of something. And so it's exercising this universal law of one, which is super important to understand, because that law of one is essentially like this. It's a circle. That's why you see the yin and yang symbol, right? It's like the black and the white. And people miss the fact that it's a circle. It's unifying the dark and the light, the black and the white. And so this unification, this all-encompassing oneness, is at which Rei is the beginning of that term Reiki. And so going into what Ki means is essentially what it means is Chi, your life force energy. And so your life force energy is, everyone has this specific frequency at which you have and hold and are able to harness. And this life force is what keeps you, having a great immune system, making you feel vital. And to exercise that is a part of certain practices through martial arts like Tai Chi, Qigong. And I study under a Qigong master, which I study my own frequency, my own Qi. And so I'm like standing next to these 80-year-old women, like moving in circles, feeling their Qi. It's really interesting, but it's really palpable when you're moving this life force energy. I'm like buzzing my hands. I could feel it in my hands. And, ancient practices like Qigong masters would sit in front of someone, and they would harness their life force energy, and they would essentially like do healings on people. There was a story that like this gentleman's a Qigong master, and this person was born paralyzed, and was able to help that person walk again by using his Qi and manifesting like that person's like, burnt out and like neurological system.
Wow.
And so these things, these ancient practices, we don't validate them because they're not a part of our culture. So this is a cultural practice that we are not familiar with, and we write it off because we're American and we do everything best, and we do it all.
We have doctors.
Right, exactly. So in the end, like this practice is just an ancient practice that's being done. Now it's being used to find, different healing modalities. And you're able to find like the power of emotion inside Reiki, because you could have suppressed grief somewhere in your body. and you've been holding that for a lifetime. And so what Reiki can do is have you finally feel that again, number one. And number two, we're able to clear that stagnant energy of what you're carrying. And it's crazy because I had a neighbor who was from Brazil, and she practiced Reiki. And I remember I was just like coming home from work, and she knew what I did. And she asked how I was doing one day, and I was like, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, why? She's like, I'm not sleeping, this, and that. She's like, hey, come do a session for me. It's on me, free. I was like, cool. And so that was the first time I was introduced to it. And through the experience, I had some emotions come up. And then I also, I felt really good after. And then she handed me this book. It's like the Chakras for Beginners. I was like, what the fuck is this? So I started like reading it. I was like, okay, what the fuck is a chakra?
Right.
And so I started reading this book, and then I started realizing, I was like, holy shit, like this is like ancient studies that, for some reason that's not being taught in schools, is not being taught in like, med school, number one.
Right.
So I began going into a rabbit hole, and I started studying this stuff, and I still, felt it was esoteric to me, to where I couldn't ingest the information. Later down the road, I, ran into the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Of this doctor. He really puts into perspective what these energy centers do. And he essentially says that, it's your autonomic nervous system that accesses these energy points, but they're more so like a software system at which that information passes through. That's accessing glands, that's accessing tissue, organs, in that area, this band of which that resonates within. So I got to really understand, like, you could really expand your superhuman nature, your vital self, through understanding what this is, how it's organically presented to us when we're really not taught what it is from the get-go.
Right, exactly. And one of the things I've experienced with Reiki is people that tell me I can't sit still. My sessions are an hour, and people are like, I can't sit still for an hour. And that might be true, and it's case by case. And if somebody is super antsy and they're uncomfortable, we'll end the session early. However, what the benefit of this modality is that life force energy that's being put into your body helps that parasympathetic nervous system kick on, which is that rest and digest part of our nervous system. So people that are always hypervigilant, you tell yourself that story that I can't sit still, I can't rest, I don't even know how to rest. Or you kind of go the opposite direction, and all you do is veg out when you're not working. So your parasympathetic nervous system is out of whack, and a practice like Reiki or yoga or meditation, but starting off with 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, that really helps the nervous system kind of balance out and relax, and it teaches the body, it reconditions the body. Okay, yes, I like to slow down, it feels good to rest, this feels good to my system. So it helps kind of teach that to that hypervigilant body. So it's really beneficial for firefighters, for people who have experienced trauma, that have a disconnection from themselves. It really helps kind of get you back in your body, so to speak.
It's not taught very much how to
not.
do that.
Yeah.
And that's why, the biggest lesson is to go find that for yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. You have to understand what rest is. And I had to figure that out myself. And, it's just not really, especially in a busy fire department I work in, it's just not really acknowledged either that you have to rest. And a lot of times my rest was just like drinking and traveling. That's what I used to do. So I never was resting, and I was just going 100 miles a minute all the time. And that really came to a hard stop for me. I had to really be like, okay, there's something I really need to just chill out, but there's different ways to understand, like even like spirituality. Spirituality is as separate from religion. We have to really make sure that that's known, because if you can think about, any first responder can really resonate with this idea of spirituality. And when you were going through your drill tower, your academy, that you had to harness this warrior spirit within you, and that piece of you is something that all of us have felt, because it was like now or never. If you had kids at home and you weren't going to make this job, you had to harness that warrior spirit in order to get this job.
Yeah.
And when we're on fires and you have to do the job, you have to harness that warrior spirit. That spirit is part of you. That is your spirit of which you have to acknowledge. That's your spirituality. And so the beautiful part of that is that when you are in a relaxing state, you can also access that as well. So when you go into a practice like meditation, you're able to make a relationship with what that means to you. And it has nothing to do with religion at all. And it's funny because if you think about the greatest teachers who have come and taught us, about these things, they would do that. They would go off by themselves and they would have this relationship with themselves.
Right.
And we've lost touch with this misconstrued idea of spirituality, that it has nothing to do with what is being taught here. And so that kind of leads into some of the belief systems. People will be closed off to Reiki because they're like, wait, no, that's against my religion. But we have to really separate the two, because this is a healing modality of which you're able to have a relationship with yourself and clear things to find full healing within.
Right. And there is a lot of doubt or, I don't know, it's written off because of religion. I like to make that very clear with people. This is a non-religious practice, and I am not the creator of the life force energy. You already have that within you. My own life force energy is merging with yours, and it's teaching you, it's reminding you, or like I said earlier, it's flipping that switch of life force energy on within you. So we're not claiming that to create this, you can figure out through your relationship with God and however you perceive that to be, where that life force energy comes from. It's just a switch. It's just our body needs a nudge. Our body needs a reminder of how to get back in rhythm with itself. Every once in a while, we all need that reminder because we're stressed or we're just go, 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 or whatever it is. We all need that reminder. And that's what Reiki does. It reminds the body, we can heal. I can heal. Through my own normal functioning, I can heal. And that's just what Reiki does.
Yeah, and if you can see it too, it's like we are an organic, hyper intelligent being that's set up like a computer, if you can see it like that. And like these pathways that we carry energetically, they will be blocked usually by emotion. Mm-hmm. That's where that stagnant energy, it can be disrupted. And that's what leads a lot to illness and disease. So a lot of times people don't understand, the core of the issue is something you've been stuffing down. And, for a long time, I stuffed my emotions because I had a job to do, and I had a duty to serve humanity through my community and in this job. But I changed my perspective when I started having my own physical issues. Mm-hmm. And I had to, learn how the body mechanics work naturally, and everything has this blanketed term of balance. That's where it really, really is essential to understand. You can be in balance, you can be out of balance. And when you're out of balance, you feel something's not right. And something like Reiki can really bring things into its center. And it's a beautiful practice. I was super ignorant, I had no idea until I met my neighbor who did this shit.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
That's amazing.
But she was really cool about it, and we was already friends with her. And, she came from Brazil. So she came with a different culture of an understanding of things. And since I've traveled, on so many different international countries, I've been way more open to kind of being perceptive to people's cultures and the way they treat life, really. And for some reason, we bastardize everything in America. And I don't know why. It's because we want to market it and capitalize on top of it. And it sucks because it makes people sick.
It does. It keeps people sick. It's not, the model is how long can we keep somebody as a patient versus let's actually treat them as a whole being. Mind, body, and spirit, not just the symptom, but, and so it sort of perpetuates the cycle of being ill, because there's not, if you find a modality that's outside of the Western model and you heal, you're no good to those doctors. And, no knock, there's room for trained doctors. We need that. That's an absolutely necessary part of our society. But we are multidimensional beings. We are a mind, a body, and a spirit. And so we need to reach for multidimensional modalities when we're looking to heal. So utilizing something like Reiki or massage or breath work or whatever it is that's outside of that Western model, I think it makes sense. It makes sense. We are not just this, one-dimensional being. We've got so many parts and facets and, aspects of us that we really owe it to ourselves to research and find additional treatments that support the doctor that you see or the surgeon or whatever it is. So it's just about finding that, like you said, that balance. Everything is balance. And if you're going down the road of healing in one route and it's not working, it doesn't mean that healing is not here for you. It means that you just need to pivot a little bit and stay in it. Good. You're listening to your body. Your body is saying, hey, this doesn't work for me, or I don't like this. I'm not getting anywhere. That doesn't mean give up. That means your body's actually reaching you. It's actually speaking to you. That's beautiful. So change it up. Just pivot and find something else or add something to what you're already doing. There's so many things out there. There's so many things out there for people to take advantage of. And seeing someone like me, for mediumship or intuitive readings or Reiki, I do past life regression also. It's another tool. It's another tool to reach for when you need to change something from within. And the whole point, the thing that I love to remind people of is, no matter how far in the red you are with your health, whether it's physical or emotional, there's always a way back. There's always, and it's the hardest thing to believe and feel when you are so in the red, so to speak. But the truth of the matter is, all of these things that we're talking about are external modalities. The truth of the matter is that every single person contains the wisdom, the intelligence, the ability to heal themselves. We might need some assistance from those external resources, but the mindset, how we process emotions, what we decide to work on, that's all up to us and contained within us. And our intuition, our connection with our intuition, we have that power to be our best healers, to be the source of our happiness, our love, our joy. All of that is contained within us. We are incredibly wise. We are an incredibly wise species. So we can do it. And it's okay that you need a little, assistance along the way. That's what we're all here for. That's what I'm here for. That's what your doctors are there for. Your therapists are there for. But the truth is, you have to get into that mindset of, I am my own best healer. I am my own best guide. I am my own source of love. I am my own source of happiness. All of that. And that's not our society also struggles with that. That's an arrogant stance to have, and that it really isn't. What it does is it puts the power back in your hands, where you feel like, some people think I have to, as soon as I heal, I'll get to be this, or I'll have these opportunities, or I'll stop feeling so shitty. And these aren't states that you have to work into. They're states that already exist for you right now. You have to remind yourself of that. You have to get into that sort of wavelength of that groove of, I am in control here. I may not have been in control of what happened to me or what I was exposed to or what I experienced, but I certainly am in control now of how I heal from all those things I was exposed to. And part of a huge percentage of what I do is reminding people of that very truth, that it's wonderful that you came and saw me, and I'm so glad to have met you, and I'm so glad to have met your loved ones in spirit. And I'm so happy to have taught you how to tap into your intuition. Now go and do that for yourself. Go and do that for yourself. Because we have that power, that intuitive channel that we all possess. It's a muscle. Everybody has it. I do this professionally and I read lots of people. I do this for a living. I'm not the only one that is capable of being this intuitive and talking to dead people. Everybody has that intuitive channel. And you don't have to dive in and talk to dead people. That's not what I'm saying. But that intuitive channel that gives you guidance, that alerts you when something's off in your body, or that alerts you to somebody that you're about to encounter that's not a safe person that you need to be protected from. Or when you feel inspired to do something, where does that come from? That all drops in through your intuitive channel. And so really the truth is, you are an incredible being that has the capability to know what's going on with yourself and to heal those things that are going on. So that's a big part of my practice, what I like to teach people.
So beautifully put, Lisa.
Thank you.
And that's a major key point towards mental health and behavioral health, is knowing that you hold the keys to your own healing and to your own self-empowerment. And to know that you have your own self-respect for yourself is huge. And, for a long time, I used to talk bad to myself. And, it was a programming that I had. And after a while, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? And I was like, it was almost like this masochistic, mentality of I need to punish myself as well. Even with like workouts and things like that, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I realized I don't have to do anything at all. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started to find this center of balance with myself, because I gave myself a bit more generosity and a bit more of compassion for myself. And it took me to feel pain to feel that, right, and to want to go there. And more of this conscious awareness of how my inner conversation was creating, more of like a distorted, lack of self-respect, mm-hmm, for myself. And I think a lot of that comes from, being in this line of work. A lot of times, we give our power away through the pecking order at a firehouse. Mm-hmm. And, it not saying like you should always respect your elders and always respect, your supervisor. But there comes a point where you really have to stand up for yourself if someone's talking poorly to you, but do it in a respectful manner. I think it's just a hard boundary you have to set for yourself. And in the end, it's just across the board, something that has to change. And obviously there is the stakes are high in our career. We all want to go home and see our families. And if you're a beginner firefighter and you're just not cutting it, there are some ways to go around it, but you have to understand, like, a lot of times our self-respect is taken from us by just taking a beating verbally, emotionally. And I think a lot of what we're seeing now with like a lot of our own behavioral health in our own department, we're seeing a lot of rookies coming in for help because they're taking a lot of this verbal abuse and they're having a hard time integrating it in their life or seeing it, And, at my station, we have rookies all the time. So I know the best way to teach and doing it in a manner of like, okay, there has to be constructive criticism here, but there also has to be a line of respect that I'm holding for that person. And I have to value that. And so your own self-empowerment, what you're saying is that you hold those keys, so you need to also take charge and make sure you're harnessing your own respect for yourself. And we call that true respect. Mm-hmm. And parallel to that is humility. So if you can manage those two words or those two phrases, true respect and humility, you can really empower yourself in a certain way. And it shows that's true leadership. And those are the type of people I want to come across in my life. And I'm really seeing true leaders show up for this epidemic of mental health. And they're really admirable when you can, I could feel it when I'm talking to a captain or a certain person that's sitting behind the desk at my station. And I know when someone's coming in and I don't feel that. And it's just, there's going to be some conflict. But at the same time, we all have to do this together. That's the thing. It's a team effort. We always say when you're jumping on the fire engine, you're 25% because it's 4 people doing this job. So if you're not capable, if something's going on in your life or something's going on, talk about it, be open about it. And it really, I think at our station, we instill that, that fine line of being open with each other. Like, hey man, I feel like shit today or whatever, I didn't get sleep last night. We're being more on that level of communication, which is super transparent and important. But I'd love to, you mentioned past life regressions. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to talk more about that. Sure. I mean, it's for people I would love for you to explain it.
Yes. So this is my favorite thing to do. Past life regression. I've been doing it for 2 years now. So it's a newer study of mine. So past life regression essentially is an experience where the way that I do it is I guide people to discover or explore one of their past lives. So I'm operating under the belief that we are one soul that lives many lifetimes. So If that messes with your belief system, disregard this aspect. Again, this is not what I grew up with believing. So this is a trip for me. But what I have learned in it is, so essentially the purpose of going and discovering a past life is either for one, just for you're interested to explore a past life of yours. And the benefit is that you will often find similarities between your personality or hobbies or interests or where you lived in that past life with aspects of who you are today in this body. And then the therapeutic component of past life regression, what I really enjoy doing is to work on a present life issue that has kind of existed for years, and you've tried other ways to heal, and it's just this repeated theme that just keeps coming up for you, and you can't shake it. Oftentimes there is a past life connection, and so we'll do a specific past life regression to discover that lifetime that is directly related to that present life issue. And what we do is we go back and we explore many aspects of that life, including the death aspect, because how we die in one life often affects us in our next life. And we can talk about that in a minute. So we go back and we experience that whole past life and the death, and then I take you into what's known as the between life state. So you could call it the afterlife, or I like to call it the between life. It's where our souls originate and where our souls return after each incarnation. And when we return to that between life state in past life regression, we have a life review, a soul review. And we learn the point, the meaning of that lifetime. And we get advice from the soul. So we're essentially I'm connecting you with your own soul. And that version of you, that higher self, gives you advice, gives you guidance, tells you where you need to lighten up and let stuff go, really helps you redefine what a problem actually is. It puts things in a different perspective for you. So you come out of the past life regression with a totally new concept of the meaning of your own life, the purpose of your own life, how every single person in your life is connected and plays a very specific role. Even the ones that irritate you, they're playing a role for you. They're helping you learn. They're helping you evolve and expand your experience as a human. And it helps you reassess. Your problems are no longer, problems with a capital P. They're things that we just have to get to and deal with, but they're not these sort of roadblocks that you entered into the session with, defining this as a massive roadblock. It's no longer a roadblock. You can see around it and you see exactly the route to take. So it really helps people kind of put those issues in perspective, and it frees a lot of people up from some of those tense issues that they're dealing with. And it's incredible. I take lots of notes during every past life regression, and most people say the exact same thing or very similar things as to what they feel like when they're dying. And so I take that to mean that that's a pretty fair assessment, and what I personally will expect to happen to my own self when my time comes. People say that it's peaceful, that I'm ready to go, and although I love my family so much, I'm ready to be done with this body. Everybody has a very light, free, peaceful feeling of love and calmness during their transition process. And what that's actually done for me in my mediumship practice is it's a trip. When I started off doing past life regressions, when I was first doing it, I kept having these experiences with living people that I was walking through past life regression. They would say very similar things about the death and dying process as what all these souls that I've been connecting with through mediumship have described death. So I have dead people talk to me all the time. I can't validate that. It's, I can tell a person this is what they're telling me, but there's not I believe it to be true because I was born with this and I've been doing it for so long, but there's not a lot of like black and white validation proof that what is coming through is 100% real. I believe it to be so, but there's not that concrete proof. In doing past life regression with living people, and they're describing the very similar aspects of dying, that to me is my proof that transition process, there's a lot of peace to it. And it's very beneficial for people that fear death. I even have a couple clients who are firefighters, not for past life regression, but for mediumship, where they come in and they have a intense fear of death because you've seen people die in every way possible. And they're, getting older, or they're close to retirement, or they've recently retired and they're starting to have their own health issues, and they're in a state of fear. And that's one of the benefits of either past life regression or mediumship, is it helps to alleviate that sort of fear of dying and what it's going to be like and what's my family going to go through and all of that. So you get a lot of peace and clarity from past life regression or a mediumship experience. But the past life regression, one of the beautiful outcomes is it teaches you how to connect with the wisdom of your higher self. So I'm walking you through it. We're laying the foundation. Then after you're done seeing me, you can meditate and get into that same state and connect with your higher self and receive that same type of guidance that came through in your past life regression session. So we're also laying the groundwork in the mind, because we have to relax. It's a very, very deep meditation. So we access the past life through our subconscious. And that's the area of the brain that is active when we are meditating. It's active when we're dreaming. It's that theta state. It's active when we're taking a shower and we just kind of zone out. And then we're like, oh, mid hair wash, and we kind of come back into our body instantly. That's, you are off in your subconscious aspect of your mind. And so we kind of use that subconscious path to get to what's known as the superconscious state, which is connecting with your soul. And people, my clients for past life regression have expressed to me, 2 years later, they can meditate a lot easier. They have much more vivid dreams, and they can tell the difference between, a regular dream versus I'm getting information, I'm getting guidance from my own higher self or God or whatever kind of being. And so it really teaches people. It conditions the body. I can get to this state. Because sometimes people think, I can't meditate. I don't know how to meditate, or I have such a busy brain, I can't meditate. There's no way I could do something like past life regression. And I always tell people, you're going to have a busy brain until you're dead. Everybody's brain is busy. Even the most experienced meditator has thoughts that are coming in that are not what they're focusing on in their meditation. And I always tell people the thoughts are going to come in. You just kind of acknowledge them and put them off to the side and bring back to focus whatever it is that you're trying to meditate on, or that if we're doing a past life regression, I just always encourage people, just come back to my voice, come right back to my voice. All those thoughts are going to come in, and you're just going to acknowledge them and tell them you'll get to them later. And that's really through that practice of acknowledging the thoughts and moving them off to the side, that really conditions the mind and the body on how to meditate and how to get back into that deep connection with self. So it's a fascinating practice. I tell myself I'm going to write a book someday about my past life regression cases, because they're incredible. They're incredible. The stuff that people see so vividly and taste and feel and experience, and they have emotions as if it's actually happening. It's such an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience. Have you done it? Have you done past life regression? Yeah,
so if my old captain is listening to this episode, he'd be like, what the fuck, John? What are you guys talking about? There is some serious interesting factors of a past life regression. And yes, I have done a past life regression. So the way I was introduced to that is I had read a series of books called The Convoluted Universe by Dolores Cannon. And she's a famous past life regressionist. And essentially what you're talking about is a form of hypnosis, of what that's termed or whatever. Yes. You want to label something, that's what it is. Yes. But it's essentially a guided meditation, right? And so, just before I go into Dolores Cannon and all those books that I had read, essentially what you're doing is you're transitioning your brain waves to theta, which is like this almost like dream state, but you're awake in the same form. And so in that state, you can access information. And so what's funny is like in that state, you're dreaming essentially right before you go to sleep. And when you wake up, you're in that state. And so the best way to make an affirmation for yourself, you might make an intention, is the best time to do that at that time. So aside from that, Essentially, what Lisa's talking about is that she's going to guide you into that theta, and she's going to walk you through this process of which you're going to access unlimited information through what has been called the Akashic records, or Akash. And this is a place of which all information is accessible. It doesn't operate off time and space the way we see it. And so when you're going into that state, you can access from what the soul at a soul level has a hard drive of many past lives. And so it brings a lot of clarity to people to recognize something that they're carrying from this life has been accessed from another life as well. They didn't complete a series of karmic cycles, or something's been passed on and you're experiencing it now. So a past life regression can, number one, possibly clear what that is, bring a lot of clarity to someone, and also brings like a better sense of an idea of yourself. So essentially, when I did a past life regression, I was just really curious. I was like, okay, what the fuck? I'm gonna try this out. And when I read those books, like my mind was bent like a fucking pretzel. I swear. Like I was like, what? Are you serious? Are you serious? And through my own past life regressions, I had an experience, and it was real. It was like almost like I basically was walked into a meditation to where I was like, I could feel my feet on grass.
Wow.
And I was like, feels like a movie screen that I'm watching, but I'm like almost awake in a way as well. And so I was essentially like this indigenous man walking through like this rainforest or something, and a snake bit my foot. And essentially they had to cut my foot off. So I had basically been an amputee in that past life. And the weird thing is that I had this pain, this injury in my right foot. I had like plantar fasciitis in my right foot for years. And so I kept trying to discover, why do I have this pain? And it was in that past life regression where I had that same thing in that past life regression where that foot was cut off. And so later in that past life regression, I became an elder of that tribe, this and that. And I was like really connected to animals, I guess. It was really bizarre, but it was so fucking real.
So real.
And I just, after I was done, I had like a lot of clarity I was like, okay, there is something to this. And it felt seriously like I was watching like an iPad and watching like a screen. And so going into like Dolores Cannon's work, the way she got started and the way she wrote her series of books on past life regressions is that she was doing hypnosis techniques to help people lose weight or stop smoking. Back in like the 60s or the 70s, her husband worked for the Navy. And so she was at the naval base because her husband lived there, and she was doing this. And so she started working on this woman and to help her lose weight. And so the story kind of goes that she started doing these hypnosis techniques on her, and then she basically started going into a past life. And she's like, well, what's going on? And then she kept doing them with her. And she realized that in that woman's past life, she died of starvation. So in this life, she was carrying this weight because she died of starvation in that life. And then after that, she started writing more books. And then her husband died, or didn't die, but he got in a really bad car accident, and he was paralyzed from like the neck down. And so she stopped doing it. And then after he died, she continued her work and started writing these series of books. If you are open and want to like have your mind bent like a pretzel, if you read those books, The Convoluted Universe, it'll really blow your mind. I mean, it took me like to a whole different perspective on reality, really. And but essentially, like for your work, people can be really stuck in something, and it can bring that clarity and expand their awareness on this reality is very limited to what we believe it to be. So that's my take on past life regression.
Yeah. And I tell people, well, first of all, you gotta be open. Obviously, I don't just take anybody who's interested. We do an intake appointment and we talk about it. I need to make sure that our energies match. Our energies are in good relationship, good rapport with one another. But you don't specifically have to believe that you live multiple lifetimes to have a profound experience. You also don't have to believe that you only incarnate as a human to have a profound experience. Because I've had sessions where they're a non-human, and that was super hard for me in my training. I'm still, as woo-woo as I am, I'm a very grounded, very black and white. I'm an earth sign. I'm Virgo. So I like a lot of proof. I like a lot of evidence. It's got to be organized and has to make sense before I jump in. And that was very similar to Reiki. I never wanted to do Reiki. I just wanted to learn about how to talk to dead people and be safe. And then my teacher was like, well, if you really want to expand, take these Reiki courses. And it was part of a certification course that she offered. So I did. And then my mind was blown, and it's one of my favorite things to do. And then later when I decided to train in past life regression, I was like, you have to believe in this in order for it to work. And my teacher was like, you don't actually have to, because the soul knows. The soul is going to take the person to the right lifetime, to that specific lifetime that's going to help them with whatever it is that they whatever block they're experiencing or whatever ailment they're dealing with. They're going to go there. So you don't have to worry about that. And I didn't believe it until I experienced it. I had a client that didn't tell me and that they didn't believe in it. And it turned out to have such an incredible, profound experience themselves. And I tell people, you could create anything in your mind. You could imagine anything in your mind. That's the lifetime that you landed in. That was the experience that your imagination, quote unquote, your imagination was creating. Yet you experienced it for a reason. So even if you don't believe that we have multiple lifetimes and there's, a vast library, the Akashic records that hold every memory of your soul, even if you don't believe in that, let's just go purely based on imagination. You could imagine anything, and if you had a profound effect, then who cares if it's real or not? If you are changed for the better as a result of that experience, who cares if it's real? If it helped you and you're better off for it, good. It worked for you. So we don't have to be as, hard and fast about, I have to believe this or not, and it's not going to work for me. If you can just imagine, use your imagination, because remember that it's the root of our imagination is in our subconscious. And so if you can imagine, you can pretend, you'll still have a profound experience. Yeah. And then I had a client who was a non-human, and I was like, oh, this is so fun. This is so wonderful. This is very exciting. And it was so incredible because the issue that we were working on with her was she felt like in her personal life, she was too erratic with her emotions, too reactive. And she's been to therapy. She's tried all sorts of, methods of healing. And she was like, I can't get a grip on my emotions. I don't want to be emotionless, but I need to be more measured. I need to be more grounded, and I just can't figure it out. And so we did past life regression, and she was this non-human, almost like a fish, but it wasn't a true fish. It was very blobby, and it was very interesting. And this creature was instinct-based only, zero emotions. So she got to experience what it was like to only exist through intuition and instinct, have no emotions, no, spikes and no adrenaline, nothing. It was just intuition. And so the takeaway was her soul is vast enough to be both an emotional being and an intuitive being. And her soul, because we had that experience, now she has the recent memory, even though that was a past life, she has the recent experience of discovering that she was this underwater creature who lived off of intuition. So that now has imprinted sort of in her present life consciousness. So she could blend the two of being an emotional being with being a being that relies on instinct and intuition. And it created much more balance and harmony for her existence. And she reported to me for several months after, I just feel so calm. I feel so good in my body. I don't feel like I'm jumping out of my skin anymore. I just feel like my feet are on the ground. And so what a beautiful outcome for her. And it's incredible. Like, again, if it was her imagination, who cares? Because now it created this really beautiful balance within her body where she feels more in control and more relaxed in her life. So it's wonderful. It's my favorite because everyone says it to me. And the thing to remember is you're not asleep. And I'm not just psychically or intuitively telling you what your past life is. You're very relaxed. I take you through a series of relaxation exercises and visualization exercises to ease you into that theta state, which is the half sleep, half awake state. and it'll feel and sound like a guided meditation, but I'm asking questions and you're answering. And so we touch on what you see, feel, smell, taste, and know about that experience. And so it does become very, very real. And so like your experience, like touching the grass and feeling the breeze and what's the temperature, you can tell, you can feel it, you know it. It's a trip. I tell people it's the best sober trip you'll ever have.
Yeah, it is wild and crazy. And it's going to really test people's belief systems listening to this. It's like there's more out there. I'd like to expand beyond all measures possible. And because I truly believe like us in our human form, there's more to it than what we are taught to believe. And that goes into like kind of taking things back down to this epidemic, behavioral health and like mental health. It's like there's more to it, especially when someone's experiencing severe trauma in their life. They're going through an experience that is entrapping them, and that suffering can really be debilitating. And if they don't understand how to navigate, themselves, it can make someone go insane and shatter them. And it's really tough to work with trauma and discovering like, okay, what is necessarily happening here? And all different cultures, tribes believe in that trauma really, really can shatter someone at a soul level. And there's like this group of a tribe in Peru, and they refer to like this energy called panema or panema, and they refer to it as like a dark energy that's hovering over someone. And that's just what they put to it. They don't say anything else. They just say that person has panema and they're sick. And so the thing about that is like these ancient cultures have always recognized this and never put any words to it. They just believed in it. And we take a lot of what we do, and like we find people sick, we give them a pill and then just send them on their way home. That's our method of helping someone get better. And a lot of times the dormancy of what's being suppressed or not understood is leading to someone's demise or someone's illness or disease or even psychotic behavior, because they don't know how to find the root of the problem.
Right.
And so something like the work you're doing can help give guidance to find better healing, better understanding, because if you're able to understand something, you're having clarity around the subject of a matter, now you can have this greater existence of yourself, because you're having some clarity of stuff you've been stuck with for a lifetime. And I know a woman who had this past life regression, and she had headaches, like just debilitating headaches her entire life. She had this past life regression, and in that past life regression, she was in World War II, and she got shot in the head. So that led up into this clarity, like, oh, these are why my headaches were occurring, and then they stopped. So I was like, there's something to this, like there's something beyond our understanding that a lot of times we judge because we don't understand something, and that leads to our ability to constrict instead of expanding ourselves,
right,
based off a limitation of, we don't want to let go of our belief systems because we're comfortable in them.
Right.
And I think when we're comfortable, that leads to conformity. And in that conformity, you're being now stuck in this state of stagnant energy or stagnantness, to where you're not going to learn or really grow as a person. And, it's interesting that Heather even told me, call Lisa.
Yeah.
Because I was like, cool. What does Lisa do? And she explained it. I was like, perfect. Let's do it, because I want people to just see that there's more to this meat suit that we walk in.
Yes.
And I do want to hear more about how you helped firefighters find clarity on, the work they do, and like if they're stuck with something or whatever. Because that to me is like really interesting, because I've told you before, like we're in this work, and we are like in the underworld, and it's wild because we're just surrounded by death, and it could be really, really haunting sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, it's twofold, because with firefighters, with police officers, you're in those dark alleys, you're seeing the worst of the worst. So we work on bringing sort of meaning to the role that you serve from sort of a soul perspective, a greater perspective than yourself. Like you're tasked with, performing this incredibly difficult job. You can bring your own sense of self and personality and talents and skills into that job, merging them with the procedure that you guys have to follow. So you're not just this machine, you're a sentient being who is following these procedures and saving lives and putting out fires and all these things. So I help people find meaning in that, remind people, kind of help people take stock of, take a reassessment of your why. Why are you doing this? Why does this light you up? And does it still light you up? And by the way, provide permission. If it doesn't light you up, do you want to make a change and kind of make that okay for people as well? And that's a whole different topic. But so it's to validate their own experiences that they have on the job. I have a lot of clients say, I just feel like something's connected to me, or I went on this call and it was really awful and I just can't shake like the image of his face, or I can't shake these things. And oftentimes they've passed. And so a lot of times those souls will come through in a mediumship session and offer a lot of appreciation for the work that firefighter, did to their body and that they attempted to save them, or how they were encouraging, or they had a kind tone of voice, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of messages that come through of gratitude and thanks. And then the personal stuff that firefighters go through. I've had clients where they've been, abused, or they've been, they grew up with, parents that were not the best, and their parents have passed, and those parents will come through in a session, or even the abuser will come through in a session and begin to apologize and make amends for what they did when they were in that body. And so there's really powerful healing that can happen in these sessions. And like you said, I think of everything as energy. I think in those terms. And so those emotions that we've stuffed down, at one point or another, they're going to come out. And whether that is through anger, through coping with alcohol, or whatever it is, something external, or, you can't hold a relationship, whatever it is, it's going to manifest in one way or another. And so I always tell people, as soon as you talk about it, even once, you've shined a light on that spot, on that darkness, and then it's no longer dark. We can no longer call that darkness, because there's a little bit of light there. And the more you talk about it, or the more you at least acknowledge that it's there, you're breaking up that heavy energy. You're giving it somewhere productive and healthy to go. You're removing it from your body. So all of our injuries, all of our illness, it's rooted in emotional trauma. It's rooted in emotional pain or stress. And whether the injury caused us to unpack what the pain or the trauma was, or it's sort of that pain and the trauma has always been there, and then eventually I get sick. There's the root cause is always there. It's always that emotion. And the benefit of seeing an intuitive is I can often feel it and then validate it for you and let you know, I feel it too. I feel this in you. Here's what we can do about it. And so while it's not therapy in any way, I'm not a clinician, it's very healing. It has similar effects as therapy. But the benefit of seeing someone like me, I work with Heather at Premier First Responder Psychological Services. So I kind of hold up the spiritual arm of Premier's practice. So it often will, you'll get the benefit of getting sort of that spiritual healing and that reminder that you are intuitive, and some tips and tricks on how to tune into your intuition. And then you get the clinical support through Heather or one of her psychologists. So I also, because most first responders that I meet are intuitive, I offer a lot of suggestions on how to protect your energy. Because when you're highly intuitive, you're often empathic. So in the spiritual world, we call it an empath. And in the psychological world, it's known as a highly sensitive person, or an HSP for short. And an empath is essentially, the way that I define empaths is we feel everything amplified. So everything that we experience in life is amplified. It's louder, it's brighter, it tastes different. Our sense of smell is often heightened. To me, an empath has many more antenna throughout their auric field, their biofield, to pick up on all the signals, all the seen and the unseen. And especially if that's the case, if a firefighter is an empath, you got to not only take care of your physical and your mental health, but you have to take care of your energetic body. And so I teach people how to ground their energy, some tips and tricks on how to handle being an empath, some visualization exercises, and how to clear that energy after every call. And then before you go home from your shift, it's so important to leave that energy there and to treat excess energy like you would put a boundary in place when you don't want to talk to somebody anymore, and you just kind of say, no, I can't be friends with you anymore, or this relationship no longer works for me. And we kind of put that stop sign hand up, like, no. I do the same thing with energy. When I go anywhere, because I'm an empath, empaths are sponges, so we absorb everything everywhere we go. I will sort of declare, I'm not working, don't bother me. And that's for souls that want to connect with me and communicate with me, but that's also living people's energy. I don't need to feel everybody. When I'm in Target, I don't need to feel everybody. So I ground my energy. I visualize white light around myself, and that white light acts as a barrier or a filter. So I know certain things about people, but I don't absorb it. It doesn't become my own, knee ache, or I was at the store not too long ago, and for some reason my knee started to hurt out of nowhere. And 2 aisles down, I bumped into somebody with this massive leg brace on. And I was like, oh, that's why my knee started to hurt. Uh-huh. So as an empath, that's how susceptible we are to feeling other people's stuff. And one of my favorite things to teach people is the majority of what you're feeling inside is not all yours. Some of it's yours, but most of it is, if you're an empath, you have unintentionally collected everyone's energetic deposits from throughout your day. And so it may feel extra overwhelming to you. It manifests as your own anxiety or your own depression or your own anger or whatever, but it's mostly the world's that you're picking up on. And so I offer a lot of support and skills or tips and tricks on how to kind of create that shield so that you don't absorb everybody's stuff. And then it's so freeing to see people realize once they practice it, wow, I'm not as crazy as I thought I was, or I'm not as depressed as I thought I was. I have my own, what it does is it frees you up. You learn how to differentiate between what's someone else's versus yours, and it puts you in a better position to deal with yours because you're not wading through and sorting through all the excess that doesn't belong to you. You're more connected with what is your pain that you can deal with. So it's it clears that out, and it's wonderful. When I realized that for myself, before I had the training, my psychic development, my spiritual development training, I thought I had a severe social anxiety disorder. Everywhere I went, my heart would race. I would have sweaty palms. I would sometimes start to sweat. I would be in a staff meeting in a calm, quiet, air-conditioned room and just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm on fire. What's going on in my body? And I would have to excuse myself. And what I realized through the course of my training was none of that was mine. It wasn't my own anxiety. My body was manifesting it as anxiety. But once I sat with that anxiety and I said in my mind, what is this? Whose is this? Then I got direction of whose it actually belonged to. And it left me. It freed me. So now, anytime I'm out in public, because it just happens in public. At home, I keep my energetic boundaries really tight. I'll start to get like that feeling in my chest, and I feel that anxiety, and I go, oh, this isn't mine. I know it's not mine, and I'm not going to deal with it. So I kind of put that, hand up. Nope, not today. In my mind, what I actually do is I will visualize a closed for business sign, and I just flip the closed sign on my door. And that's my signal to everyone's energies around me and to spirit that's around me. I'm not working. I'm here to be a human. I'm not here to be a feeler. I'm not here to be a channel to deliver messages. Nope, go away. And so I like to teach others how to do that too, because we are in control. We are more in control of all of those excess energies and frequencies and icky feelings. We are in much more control than we realize. And so I like to empower people, teach people you can have those energetic boundaries. And we need to. It doesn't make you less intuitive. It actually makes you an even more clear channel, because then you're developing your discernment of what is mine versus what is as energy that I've picked up throughout the course of my day. So it makes you more, a better gauge of what I actually need to work on, and what it's not mine, and I don't even have to give it any more attention. So it frees up a lot of stuff in people to even hear that you're not as jacked up as you might think you are, because a lot of that is that you're an intuitive empath, and you're absorbing it from your calls that you're on throughout that day or that shift. So that's great news, because it helps people feel like more in control of what they actually need to work on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, you just explained it so well, and there's just a lot of I guess missed concepts that we're missing here. And like, I think you're putting a lot of the dots together on things that we are manifesting as an illness, that it may not be that. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm a hypersensitive person. I feel everything. Mm-hmm. And so I know that because like I said before, made a relationship with myself, and I've sat in my own anxieties, and I realized sometimes it's not mine that I'm carrying. Especially when I'm around my mom, mm-hmm. because she is just hyperactive, she's a wreck sometimes, mm-hmm. She's just all over the place, and her energy is like, we're super connected because she's my mom. Mm-hmm. And when she leaves my house, I'm like, holy shit, I got to sit down and just not do anything.
Yes.
But I can take in some of this stuff into the field of when I work, because I would go into a home and I would just feel just something really dark happening. And certain people, patients, I'd be like, there's something weird and going on, and I just don't know what it is. And so I'm very happy that you pose the practice of asking questions, mm-hmm. because if you honor that you are this hyper intelligent human being, if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. Simple as that.
Yes.
And that's the way of navigating within universal law and order, because by taking control of yourself and manifesting that within, you ask those questions, you're going to get the answers. So this story is kind of interesting, because when I was younger, I used to work in different cities all over Southern California in my line of work. And I used to pass this house. Every single time we would drive by this house, I would feel really dark, really strange. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know at the time that I was just super sensitive to this stuff. And then later down the road, it's like years later, we went to this house, and there was animal sacrifices done in this home.
Wow.
And the person was just I don't know, they call it in Spanish a bruja, mm-hmm. right? A witch or mm-hmm. whatever. But we went to this home because she was really sick. But there was stuff hanging all over the fucking walls. She basically was doing animal sacrifices in this home. And so I was like, holy shit. I was feeling that the entire time. I knew there was something going on around this house, and even being around certain people, I know I met this guy at the gym. I wouldn't meet him. I'd just be around him. And I knew this guy, there's something going on with this guy. And I just I couldn't put my finger on it. His energy was really dark. And then I think a year later, he was arrested for child pornography or something like that. Whoa. And I was just dude, I knew there was something wrong with this fucking guy.
Yes.
There was an intuitive sense that I was accessing. And when you're around someone who carries themselves well, or just they permeate just beautiful energy, when you're around that person, you want to be around them more. Mm-hmm. And I really would just say, practice that, practice when you're around someone, if you're around toxic people, you don't want to answer their phone calls or be around them. And this goes with family members too. You have to set boundaries with those people, because they just project, and it's just you feel a dump when you leave their home or whatever, when you're hanging out with them, mm-hmm. and you can feel that. And I would say just respect the fact that that's real. And when you're at work, respect that as well. For all the first responders, firefighters, police officers, just know And especially for like police officers, man, they handle a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah.
And it's just wild. If you can understand that and really realize what you're working with within this field that we're in, this web of existence that we're accessing, there's more to it than meets the eye. And I'm super happy you're able to come on here and kind of like just explain certain things from a different perspective and a different point of view of the kaleidoscope. You know what I mean? That it's a complex thing of what we perceive as this reality. And if you're able to listen and see, wow, there may be something to this, or I felt this in that experience at this home or whatever, you're really going to be, this conversation is really going to open you up to that there's more and there's something beyond. I can give another story. Is like this one time, this woman was just dying, and we were like taking her down the stairs. It was like flights of stairs we had to go down, and I remember she was grabbing my hair because I was at the bottom of this thing called a stair chair, which we wheel people down because we can't carry them, but they're too big or whatever, they can't walk. And she grabbed my hair, and I will never forget that experience. And she basically died.
Wow.
But I just remember her grabbing my hair when she was taking like her last bits of breath.
Wow.
And it shook me so hard. I went back to the station, couldn't go to sleep. And for months, I just felt like just this energy, just heaviness on me. And I carried that. And I really didn't know what to do, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think over a period of time, I used to run a lot. I used to run marathons, and I think just through working through shaking off through sweating things out and just purging my sweat, it helped me recover from it. But it really shook me to where I just had hard time sleeping after that as well. But there's things to this, where in order for us to serve, we have to be present within ourselves and find the center, because if we are not going to be there to help others, what's the fucking point?
Right.
I wish I knew more about the multidimensional self or the other aspects of my being in order to find a center back then, because I had a hard time dealing with it. And no one ever talked about this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
no. How do you shake a victim or a patient that you're working on? How do you shake their energy? You're not taught that. And is that even real? And is that even talked about? That's not a thing that is out there. And so I even would say to that specific woman that passed, I would say that your body was interpreting that as heaviness, but it probably wasn't truly energetically heavy. You were just you just didn't know that her presence was around you, likely to just pour into you for being there, for being that last either person that she physically touched or saw. And she probably wanted to just be around you long enough to get you to realize, hey, I'm here. I just want to say thank you. Hey, I'm around you. But our bodies, until we know what it is, will manifest it as something else. Like my example with the anxiety feeling, it wasn't true anxiety. So it might not have been true. It probably didn't mean that she was, she didn't transition. It didn't mean that she was, not at peace. It just was the way that your body was picking up on that energy, and your body hadn't sat with something like that before to try to dissect it and figure out what it was. And so it probably came into your own biofield as heaviness, but it was probably her just trying to make it really known to you that she was thankful.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
how would you?
How the fuck was I supposed to know? I just know, like, well, one of the things I kind of looked back on that, because, sometimes recurring memories will come up for me on calls I've had, which is crazy because over the years of doing this work, like, I really don't remember any of my calls. I just block them out. I really don't recall. But that sometimes they'll come through and it's almost like a conscious effort for me to clear the call, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Of something that was like traumatic or whatever. But the interesting thing was like that she touched like the crown of my head, which is a very sensitive area for someone. That's a point of entry of where your biofield accesses that entryway. So I did recall this conscious effort of recalling that was a part of that process. which is interesting. I don't know like why I had to kind of like process that, but I did. But I guess.
Can I ask you a question?
For sure.
Where were you in your own journey of, you said that you'd read all the Dolores Cannon books. Like, where were you at in your own personal journey of understanding self and spirituality at the time that she grabbed the top of your head?
Oh, I was super young. I mean, okay. I was in my like early 20s.
The reason I ask is because perhaps one of the roles that she played for you was physically drawing your attention to that crown chakra. Like physically, because that's not a commonly touched, unless you're a child and getting like a pat on the head, that's not a commonly touched area. And I think maybe some people might say, oh, she was just grasping, she was dying and maybe in agitation or something, and she was just grasping. And that might be true on one hand, but the other side of that is that she might have been sort of a person on your journey to help begin to put breadcrumbs on your path that would lead you to this spiritual, opening and discovery of self and spirit. And that's our crown chakra. That is our funnel of receiving divine guidance, intuitive information by way of thoughts, which a lot of people are very intuitive by way of thought. A thought gets kind of dropped into your body. You don't know how you know it, but you know it. It's locked in. And that happens by way of crown chakra, top of the head. So I just asked because I thought that was interesting that you recall that so vividly. That she might have, her physical touch, you might have needed to begin that journey of discovery for self.
Yeah, I can't recall like exactly in the timeline of where that was in my life. I really don't know how exactly old I was, but I know like my spiritual path began when I was 22, when I was in 2012. And that was when I started reading a series of books. I was working for the Forest Service over in Washington State, and I was just like next to this Native American land. And that's where it started. I read this book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which embarked me upon self-awareness, the understanding of the spiritual self. And it really took me to, it's a beautiful story if anyone's ever read that book. But it really takes things into perspective about your general awareness of the self and that there's more to it. And it brought me to this greater sense of self in general. And at the time of that experience as well, like just being, no cell phone reception, no TV where we were at. There's no reception where we were living in the middle of the woods. Wow. But there's this marker where I was just like connected, I guess. And it was really beautiful, and especially being next to like this sacred Native American mountain pass. There was just a connection there I cannot put to words. It was like this presence, and that really took me to that place. And I guess this story goes into a bit deeper, but that crew I worked for, two of my friends on that crew had passed away that year of that season. Wow. And they died in a car accident. And so I had, what we would do is, and if you're in the middle of the woods, not doing anything, especially in Washington State, all you're going to do is like drink beers and shoot shotguns. So that's what we would do. And so the day they died, the night prior, I was with both of those guys, just me, doing the same fucking exact thing, shooting shotguns and drinking beer. And the next day they went to go up to the same spot to do the same exact thing, and they got in a car accident and died. And so when we had to end the season short because of that incident, no one could work with that early demise of our friends. And if you ever worked on a hand crew, or anyone you've spent time with, I mean, you're sleeping next to them in the dirt, you're sweating, and you're really connected with these people. And so it was a really hard loss for everyone. But for me, I took it a part of myself that I was destined to be in this life to make a greater purpose of myself, because I was not with them the second night. Yeah. And I could have been. And so there was this really crazy just awakening that I had realized that there is something more to this life for that I have no idea and how it serves, however it's going to present itself. So that's how I started my awakening. But
so even they played a role. Even they
For sure.
played a role in their passing. They played a role for you, a very significant role that would lead to, this incredible wealth of knowledge and information and self-empowerment. And so that's a positive takeaway that you can glean from such a horrific loss, is that in their death, you took that pain and created purpose for yourself. And then, that would later, set the stage for this mission that you're on now, is to normalize talking about mental health and wellness and getting your shit figured out. And it's, too heavy to carry, so let it go. And like they were integral parts of that path for you. So there's always, as hard as it might be, there's always something positive to take out of trauma. There always is. And you might not be in a position to find that purpose yet, but there's always a purpose there. And it's not just, the pain. It's not just the agony that you go through, the suffering. There's so many lessons there. So much wisdom there that I think we owe it to ourselves to use. Those are just catalysts to extract lessons from. And we can almost like stand back from the hurt, step away from the trauma and see it from a bigger perspective. It's less about what you experienced and more what you can take away from that situation. And that's how you alchemize the situation. That's how you find purpose from pain. That's how you create meaning from tragic situations. There's always something positive to take away, and it's for yourself, but then it's also to be moved through you, through your work or through your creative expression, or how you are, a parent, or how you are in a relationship. It always, that purpose can move through you. And it's, I think we really owe it to ourselves to kind of reflect back on some of those harder calls that you've been on, or those personal experiences that you've had, to think about, ask your higher self, ask your intuition, what's the lesson? What am I supposed to learn from this? Or those flashbacks that people get, people with PTSD and trauma, this is just kind of an out there theory, but what if those flashbacks are designed to get you to go right to that trauma and sit in it and feel it, and then find yourself on the other side of it and teach yourself that it's safe to go in there. It's safe. And those flashbacks are your body's way of alerting you it's time to heal. And we work really hard to numb and silence and squash those flashbacks, but those flashbacks persist until we actually deal with it. And it's from my perspective of, again, thinking in terms of energy, it always requires way more energy and effort to squash the hard feelings, to bury the feelings. It requires so much extra effort. You think you just don't talk about it and it goes away. Your body is working overtime to keep that thing under that rock that you've hid it under. And when we have bouts of anxiety, or we have a flashback, or we're confused, or we feel stuck, that's your wonderful body's way of telling you it's time. Move that rock. It's time. Let's go face it, look at it, name it, talk about it, shine that light on it, and teach your body, condition your body that it can handle going back and reliving it for the purpose of processing. Your body can handle it. And so what a beautiful takeaway that you've been able to extract from that situation of losing your buddies, that that set you on your path, that kind of recalibrated your system and helped you rediscover your passion and your why for doing this work. So they played a really important role for you.
Yeah, so well put. And even talking about it, it got really emotional, because it was just such a abrupt moment in my life and everyone's life at that moment in time. And one of the things I think is really fascinating is there is this push, not even a push, there is a insurgence of psychedelics being used to treat trauma, because these powerful medicines have this ability to navigate around the blocks you've carried to make you face it.
Yes.
And so a lot of the times people are afraid to do psychedelics, and sometimes psychedelics, it's just a misnomer and a blanketed term for something that's been, cast away from the Reagan administration when they had this, this commercial where they're having a frying pan and they're having like an egg and there's like, this is your consciousness. You're going to fry your brain.
Right.
And now, with this agency like MAPS, they're seeing like, hey, this is some serious evidence-based therapy that we're putting people through these processes of being able to face their trauma. And in the evidence of facing their trauma, they're able to relive it and understand things from a different perspective of why that happened to them and see the greater purpose of it. And I know from just from a friend that she, was in doing ayahuasca and she was molested by her dad. And she didn't know why he did that to her. And she kept struggling with it for a long time. We did ayahuasca. And she kept being presented with this deep, dark figure. And then in that experience, she lifted the veil and it was an angel.
Wow.
And the angel gave her this big expression on how and why that happened to her. And from that experience, she found the purpose of what she's here to serve. And now she works with women with trauma. And so there's a greater expression with these medicines that help you face the trauma, go into it, and then rediscover yourself through the experience of accessing these things, these experiences that you were afraid to visit or revisit or relive, when in the end, it was showing you something the entire time.
Exactly.
So, I really want to have people be open with the idea that we are changing the way we heal. And it's gonna go against the paradigm of big pharma. It's gonna go up against the paradigm what we thought what healing was, and it's gonna transform everyone's perspective to see on what works, what doesn't work, and to be innovative and be, I guess, more so in tune with what works. We're gonna change that, and we're knocking down doors and breaking down barriers by doing this work for those who see the truth. And the truth is that we are as a collective, the people in masses are tired of the sickness. We're tired of the nightmares. We're tired of being fucking sick.
Yeah.
Especially the first responders and the firefighters and the police officers and the veterans. The VA does nothing for veterans.
Nothing.
They will prescribe them Valium and they will not do anything for them. And now you have all these Navy SEALs going to Mexico to do Iboga.
Right.
And do Ibogaine and do ayahuasca because they see the healing that they've suppressed for a lifetime, that they have served in special services to save our country from, these wars or whatever it is. And you're going to see from personal experiences of people who are doing this great work to serve our communities that they need help. And that's why this podcast is created, is to do that, to shine light on what is out there. Not saying that any of this is for everybody, but however, be open to it. And just hear and listen to what is out there. I just really have a heart for, my community and my coworkers that are the brave men and women who do this job every day. And the biggest thing I've found is like, I don't want to bring any of the shit I have from work home because now I'm spreading it to my girlfriend and her daughter. And now that's going to create a ripple effect in them. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And that was like a big marker for me in the way I had changed, the way I integrated my life, is in the way I wanted to see I'm leaving that at work, but also processing it and taking care of myself to where I'm not going to send it on to my next generation as well. Because ultimately, like the children of this earth, they hold the keys to our next generation of success. And I don't know if anyone's ever listened or heard about generational work, but the work you do, it makes such a profound effect on your generation that you are stopping it. All the generational trauma that you're carrying, it stops at you. And it takes a brave person to do that work. And if you can just honor the fact that you're making an effort to stop it at you, that's a brave enough soul to do it.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. And that exact message comes up in my sessions a lot. There will be a father or a grandfather or a great grandparent that will come through in mediumship, and they will start to talk about, their family member that's in front of me, and they'll start, oftentimes it's kind of interesting. Spirit, generally, when I give readings to people, they're just kind of facing their person and I'm just their mouthpiece. But every once in a while, they'll turn to me and talk to me, and they'll start to talk about their person. And a lot of times they'll start to talk to me and go, they were born to do it differently. So that validates, I've always felt different from my family, or I just never felt like I was actually related to these people. And how could I have picked this family? It's so, there's so much trauma and chaos. And a lot of times there will be an acknowledgement from that soul that you were born to do it differently. You were born to stop all of that bullshit way of life, all of the, we don't talk about hard things, and we sweep things under the rug, and we don't talk about feelings. And that a lot of people I find are born into their families to hit the brakes on the way of old and to do it differently. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating what comes out. People think, oh, you're just going to sit there and talk to dead people, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more. And, the psychedelics that we were just talking about, it's, I just, whatever it is that you're talking about in this podcast, whatever resources, I say to people, my own spiritual development teacher would often say, take what you like and leave the rest. Everything that we discussed in this episode, it's not for everybody. But if it piques your interest, that's a good indication that your energetic body is kind of like, yes, go try that, do that. Whether it's with me or someone else in this field, just try it. And with psychedelics, I'm so excited to exist in this time period that I hope and I pray that those laws change. The work of MAPS is incredible. The documentary on Netflix, How to Change Your Mind, I think everybody should watch.
For sure.
I was so square up until my early 30s. I didn't try anything. And I did psilocybin a couple years ago and had an incredible experience with it. I finally felt ready because, again, I'm a type A. I'm in control, and I was very scared about where I would go and what I would do. And I also thought, well, shit, I already talk to dead people. I already see things that no one else can see. Should I really do psychedelics? Should I really do mushrooms? And I had an amazing experience. It was very, very healing. It was so profound for me. My dad passed away in 2009, and I thought I had worked through a lot of that stuff, and I didn't have a great relationship with him when he was alive. And I thought that I had processed that, and I had to face a lot of things when I took mushrooms. But it was this, here we go. It was this feeling of, oh, here we go, but also readiness. And I had no ability to silence what was coming up. And I am so grateful that my conscious thinking brain didn't stop what was being brought up for me so that I could actually face it and process it and then feel lighter, release it from my body. It was an incredible experience. It was an amazing experience. I think if you are a, healthy individual, I think it's one trip. Everybody should do one trip in a safe setting with, precautions and all the things. But I think it was so profound for me. I was very anti for the longest time. And I watched that documentary and I was like, the Reagan administration, oh my gosh, like this is insane. Something that works, something that's so incredible. It's not just this hippie substance. This is incredibly powerful medicine. It changed my opinion completely. And then I had that experience myself, and I'm a huge supporter and proponent of it.
Yeah, and like even with like the misnomer with psilocybin is like there's so many different studies on it. There's something called the rebus model, and the rebus model is essentially the studying of the neural pathways of the brain around belief systems, which is essentially what chains us down to our limitations. And so these belief systems we carry in our brain have these neural pathways that are like blocks, and it's gonna loop itself around constantly. So if someone has grown up with trauma or abuse, they will carry this belief system around that idea of something down to an identity of what they believed. Now with psilocybin, they've seen with this rebus model that it can rewire the neural pathways around that belief system and bring this newer perspective of someone believing in something their entire life and open that up to a totally different perspective. And so it's really fascinating to see like the different studies I've seen and read up on, because it changes people's lives for the better. And especially if someone's gone through traumatic experiences in their life and they carry these wounds that they've been struggling with for a lifetime. And now this, these evidence-based studies on something like psilocybin or whatever can completely revamp someone's life in a different way. And I think like this whole idea that, like firefighters and police officers have a hard time with just believing in like therapy really to do anything like that. So, I mean, even with like the VA, not helping and things like that, like I mentioned, like people are fucking desperate and they will look for anything to find healing. And, the evidence now is out there to where people are presenting it to you like, hey, look at all this evidence-based stuff and it's going to help. And along with, I don't know if it was Treat California, I don't know if you were aware of that agency, but they were using these evidence-based studies to use psilocybin, ketamine, LSD to help firefighters and first responders to find healing. They were going to put it on the ballot and then they didn't get enough signatures. They're not going to do it this year. But
I did hear about that.
This woman, like she is profoundly in this belief that it helps because the evidence is like across the board. Like it's like over 300 percentile of having people leave without anxiety or depression because of the treatments they've done. And I was like appalled by hearing people do LSD and to do this treatment. But I was like, they're doing this evidence-based studies because they're helping them integrate the process and have this, better idea of how the therapy works as opposed to just, going to a party and taking LSD or whatever.
Right. In the right setting, in a therapeutic healing setting with a trained trip sitter,
Right.
you can have, it can, just set you free from a lot of that stuff. And I forget which psychedelic, their MAPS is incredible, but it's shown to cure alcoholism. And that
there's different kinds.
The 12-step model, the guy that started 12-step, what did he take?
So the story goes with the gentleman who wrote the 12-step model for alcoholism took LSD.
Yes.
And in LSD, he was accessing different planes of consciousness, had a conversation with this higher dimensional being, and received a download of this information of what he should do to help heal alcohol. And if you hear like, people who go through a 12-step program, they go through like this prayer and like believing in a higher power and so forth. And even like Steve Jobs created the iPhone off an LSD trip.
Right.
So it's like, dude, like why is this demonized when people are experiencing these things and these profound experiences that are being highly creative, But like, I think the biggest thing, if someone is even like batting an ear or an idea, even trying something, to be very careful and also integrate your experience. You'll have to integrate all your experiences, but especially something like that if you're going to do a therapeutic setting. But I'm also not marketing a bunch of firefighters to go do some fucking psilocybin. But I'm just saying I'm going beyond the perspective that there are so many other options here, and that there has to be a series of openness with oneself to see like, hey, there's more to this. And I don't know.
Well, the point is the system now doesn't work. It's broken, and there are too many people suffering. And if a substance or, a guided meditation or seeing a medium is going to help you, do it. And we got to get over that conditioned programming that it's illegal or there's no data, or that's what drug addicts do, or whatever the stigma is. Just pursue something, and unless and until your gut tells you to stop doing something, go after it. But the purpose is to find something that helps you heal. Find a lot of things that help you heal, because it's not just going to be one modality. It's going to be, like we said, it's going to be a multitude of, therapeutics, and working on your spiritual side, taking psychedelics, seeing a therapist. That's all part of it. But the point is that the way that our system is set up now, and waiting for insurance and getting on a wait list to see a therapist, it's ridiculous and it doesn't work.
For sure.
And so it's got to change, but we have to be in control of that change. So if you're struggling, if you need help, there's help out there. Find it. Ask, talk, research, do something. because it's not, you don't have to carry that pain. It's not yours to hold on to anymore. You didn't have a say of when it was inflicted on you, but you definitely have a say of what it's doing to you now. And it's all healable. Everything can be healed. It's all workable, doable. You just got to be ready to do it. I want to say this because this might help people. I've said this a lot, and I'll say it as often as it comes in and I feel necessary. When I meet somebody who, oftentimes I get people that schedule appointments and they go, I don't know what I need. I just was, you were recommended, and so I just wanted to book an hour. And then it comes out in the session, I feel stuck. I feel really confused. I don't know how my intuition speaks to me because I'm in such like sadness or despair. I don't know what to do. It's one of my favorite energies to feel in another human being when someone says that they're stuck or they don't know what to do. Because from an energetic perspective, how that energy feels to me is it's a ready position. The energetic body has been waiting for you, your conscious physical body, to actually say, I'm stuck. And as soon as you say those words, I'm stuck, your energy changes and you move into this position of, now let's do something about it. So when I meet people that tell me that, maybe it's a little morbid, but it's one of my favorite things to feel, because your energetic body is excited, ready, determined. We've said it. We're not hiding it anymore. Let's go. So it's this one, the more, you tell yourself like, I'm going to feel this way forever. And it's not true. That is a narrative that you're perpetuating. Energetically, your body is saying something much different. And that is, let's do something about these feelings.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I like to close on that.
Okay.
So if someone needs to reach out to you, how do they do that?
The best way right now is through Instagram. And I'm at Medium Lisa Mercier, Mercier.
Cool.
And you can message me, send me an email.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's like such a tremendous conversation, and I think it opens up a lot of doors of just like realizing there's more to it, But thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor to really have you here, and a very special conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. So if you want to access Acera Health or Frontline Behavioral Wellness, you can access it through acerahealth.com and see all the modalities they offer through therapy. And if you want to access Grablives through Spotify and Apple, give us some reviews, some stars, and even on YouTube if you can do that as well. So thank you everybody for listening, and take care.